Skip the preamble.
Picture a traffic report for the solar system.
Not a poetic one.
A dry voice at 3 a.m. reading out numbers no one expects to be beautiful: velocity, inclination, hyperbolic excess, apparent magnitude.
A fit mean for anginas and insomniacs.
The camera is a telescope in Chile, part of a quiet watch called Atlas, the sort of system that was designed to spot the rocks that will never write you a letter.
The field is still. 10 a pixel moves.
Most pixels move if you're patient. This one breaks the patience. It cuts the frame with math you can feel even if you don't know the word for what you're feeling. It is fast in a way that makes the rest of the sky look polite. It steps out of the category you keep for familiar strangers, comets with unwashed hair, asteroids with bad posture, and into the category you keep for errands you did not plan to run tonight. We thought we understood our neighborhood. Gravity was our comfortable furniture. Newton wrote us a manual.
Einstein fixed the hinge.
The solar system, we told ourselves, was a house with drafty windows but dependable plumbing. Then 2017 opened a door we didn't know we had and let in a guest who refused to take off its coat. We named it Oumuamua, because the first word we found was scout, and that felt like honesty. It moved like a rumor. It accelerated, leaving the sun with no visible tail, no jets, no obvious reason. You do not accuse physics of failing on a first date.
You adjust your tone. You listen.
A few brave voices, Avi Loeb loud among them, said the word technology, and they paid the social tax science always levies on the impatient. The rest of us did what the method demands when the sky is rude. We said, the data stands, our story will catch up. 2 years later, Gennady Borisov brought us a different kind of relief. His namesake comet strutted in with ice and dust, a proper coma, a tale that made sense to anyone with a childhood. It was interstellar and it behaved. It let everyone breathe. Not because it erased the first lesson, but because it told us the highway beyond our town carried trucks as well as sports cars. Normal could travel too. Now another line appears on the board.
July 1st.
Chile. Atlas catches a speck that will not stay a speck. The orbit solves to hyperbolic almost before the coffee cools. The inclination hugs the plane in a way that makes old statistics clear their throats. The numbers come down like weather alerts.
Speed first.
Hyperbolic excess, the speed that remains when the sun has had its say, is the part that tells you what sort of life this traveler has led. Oumuamua's was about 26 kilometers per second. Borisov's, about 32. This new guest informally, inevitably, nicknamed Atlas by the very survey that saw it posts 58 kilometers per second of spare momentum.
Not a typo.
Not a rounding error.
58.
Call it more than 200,000 kilometers per hour if your gut prefers larger units. At that clip, Earth to Moon is a commute under 2 hours. Speed by itself is just a brag. Speed in company with a path that ignores capture is a signature. It is the bruised knuckle of some old ejection, a mark left by a catastrophe or a dance that ended roughly. You don't fly like this unless your birth family had giants with bad tempers, or your hometown had a binary star that learned how to throw. Trajectory next. Reverse the line and it points back, not to a comfortable suburb of the Orion Arm, but toward Sagittarius, toward the chaos near the galaxy's waist where clusters and tides and old stars pull on each other like arguments. The thick disk is not a place for delicate things. If Atlas grew up there, it carries in its ice a script written when the Milky Way was younger and meaner. That matters because our instruments cannot go there. We cannot scoop dust from 10-billion-year-old neighborhoods. But a shard from those neighborhoods can meet us halfway and let us listen to a chemistry lesson written in light.
Then brightness.
Every object has the courtesy to declare itself, with photons, to the telescopes that catch them. We know how to turn a light curve into a guess about size if we can assume reflectivity. We know how to incorporate a coma's contribution if one exists. The first days are a tease. Bright without the normal flare-ups. A still face when the temperature says it is time to sweat. The paradox writes itself. Either we are looking at a rock too big to be where it is according to the models that track how worlds eject debris, or we are looking at something small and highly reflective or highly active in a way we have not catalogued properly. Neither option sits nicely. Both ask impertinent questions. A neat theory is a garden trimmed too early.
Let the scene breathe.
Picture the solar system not as a sanctuary but as a busy harbor. We used to imagine ourselves on an island with a nice view and very few ferries. The last decade has given us 3 uninvited boats in under 10 years when we expected one in half a lifetime. That is either luck so loud it becomes annoying, or a correction to a blind spot we have been proud of for too long. A 2018 estimate whispered that the galaxy might be home to a trillion Oumuamua-sized wanderers. Trillion is the kind of number that numbs.
It should instead hum.
It means the Milky Way is not a museum of orbits preserved under glass. It is a weather system of fragments, an archipelago where bottles travel and almost none of them bother to write down their return address. Atlas is a bottle with its paper intact. The romantic line would be to call it a message. The scientific line is better. It is a record.
Speed is ink.
Inclination is grammar. Brightness is an accent that may or may not be genuine. Composition is vocabulary. We are literate enough now to read a little. We will never be fluent. That is all right. The words we can recognize are good. The call comes down the pipeline to point the elder eye. Hubble nods with old dignity and turns. The images in July 2025 are not gossip.
They are proof. A diffuse coma blooms.
A respectable tale unfurls. That ends one argument. Atlas is not a giant dead asteroid faking charisma. It is a small active comet doing what comets do when they approach a star. You relax for a heartbeat and then the new problem shows its teeth. If the coma is what lights the sky, then the tucked-away nucleus is likely no more than 6 kilometers across, a pebble by planetary standards, a decent city by ours. How does a body that size blaze this brightly?
With how much gas? Wis wat kind of Dust? Under wat kind of Sonnenlichtgeometrie?
The answer will not fit in a headline. It will be a stack of models nobody reads unless they are very odd or very dedicated. It will include a paragraph about forward scattering and another about grain size distributions, and a subpoint about how carbon-rich fluff changes the phase function in a way that makes average readers wish they had chosen gardening as a hobby. It will also be a love letter, if you know how to read the better chemistry. For a minute, set the instruments aside. Step into the shift that this kind of event forces on a culture. We have told ourselves for centuries against evidence that we are central. Not just geographically, but narratively. The galaxy disagrees politely and repeatedly. It keeps sending us proof that we are participants in a larger circulation.
Not in peril. Not in control.
In motion with everything else.
A harbor, not a hideout.
The difference matters because harbors have responsibilities.
They keep lights on.
They invest in pilots who can greet a stranger and walk it in. They do not sit on their porches and grumble when ships pass. Atlas is not a threat. It is an opportunity to be the kind of civilization that practices welcome as a scientific skill. The most delicate part of that skill is how we talk about it. You remember what the headlines did last time. You remember the binary they forced, natural versus artificial, proof versus hoax. You remember how badly that frame fit. This time the temptation will be different but related. Fastest comet points to galactic center. Chemical fossil from before the sun. Evidence we are not unique. None of those is a lie. All of them are a kind of injury. They steal the real victory, a careful accumulation of clues that will let a quieter truth emerge. The quieter truth is that Atlas is a mirror and a messenger at once. It reflects what we do not yet know about ourselves, our confidence, our fear of being unremarkable, our impatience with ambiguity, and it carries, layered in dust and ice, information about how worlds build themselves under different suns. The mirror part is the uncomfortable one. The messenger part is the reward for lingering with the mirror longer than your attention span prefers. Hold the mirror first. All models are good. They are easily threatened when a single outlier refuses to collapse to the mean. Oumuamua's acceleration without a coma confronted us with a force that looked like intention only because our inventory of pressures and sublimations was thin and our intuition about geometry was lazy. Borisov's well-behaved plume comforted us without correcting our intuitions. Atlas, by being small and brilliant, punctures a different inflation, the habit of believing we can estimate size from light without getting surprised. The lesson is not give up. It is get better. It is stop expecting the universe to be a student who shows all its work on the board. Now open the envelope. Atlas as active comet means spectra will sing. JWST's instruments are built precisely for this, to sift light into stripes so fine that molecules confess. Water has a fingerprint a child can memorize. Carbon dioxide wears another. Methane, carbon monoxide, organics with names that taste like laboratories, all of them draw lines in the dark. The ratios will do more than satisfy curiosity. They will place this object on a map of thermal histories. They will tell us if it condensed in a freezer or a fridge, in a calm nursery or a windswept cradle, under a star like ours or under the sort of temper that lives closer to the galactic heart. We know from Borisov that interstellar comets can carry more carbon monoxide than we expected, a signature of formation in colder regions than our own Kuiper belt likes to claim. We know from 1,000 local objects that water comes standard and that organics are easy to make and easy to break. We do not know if the standard we have inferred holds for the places we cannot visit. Atlas may end up saying, yes, we build worlds the way you do. It may end up saying, no, there are more recipes than your cookbooks admit. Either answer widens our room. There is also the geometry game. Brightness is not a constant, even when production is. Dust scatters light asymmetrically. Fine grains throw sunlight forward like small hands tossing confetti into a breeze. Coarser grains behave with more dignity. The angle between sun, comet, and observer, all three forming a triangle in which only one corner is ours to choose, shifts the show we see. A coma rich in ultrafine particles will make small things look big. A coma shaped by jets that fire from vents like well-timed geysers can produce spikes in light curves that the untrained will mistake for miracles. Atlas's intensity could end up being a trick of perspective married to a personality we have not met yet. Tricks of perspective are not sorcery.
They are art. Nature is good at art.
Speed remains the romantic. 58 kilometers per second is a sentence that sounds impressive.
The impression is deserved.
It means Atlas did not merely fall into our yard, it sliced across our lawn with the indifference of a train that has other cities to reach. Hyperbolic excess that high means escape from any star's bond becomes likely unless the star loves very hard. It means the ejection that made this traveler took place in a system where giants handled small bodies roughly, or where a complicated dance braided gravity in a way that flung debris at violence. Trace the vector back and you arrive, with big error bars to be fair, at neighborhoods whose ages make the sun seem young. That makes Atlas a rare kind of book, a field manual written by time before Earth taught language to rocks. Books like this test institutions. Hubble cannot point too close to the sun without risking its eyes. JWST has a sun avoidance rule stricter still. The moment of perihelion October 2025 promises both theatrical activity and terrible geometry. It is a familiar cruelty. The parts of the sky that are most interesting are often the least available. That is why the ground-based net matters. That is why smaller scopes in the right hands can embarrass big budgets that arrive late. That is why coordination is as noble a skill as genius. The teams that drag miracles out of bad weather do not wear capes. They write emails no one sees and schedule observations in the cracks of everyone else's lives. If you are waiting for an "is it aliens?" this is the paragraph where you remember to unclench. Atlas is an active comet with a tail and a coma and a nucleus size that fits our categories. The weirdness lives in ratios and brightness and speed, not in smoke that shapes itself into the word hello. That is exactly what makes it precious. It is public wonder without the need for theology. It is a reason to be brave without a reason to be paranoid. It lets us practice how we will behave when a visitor arrives with questions we cannot duck. There is a thin line between awe and abdication. Awe says, "This is larger than me and I am happy to be small correctly." Abdication says, "This is larger than me, therefore I cannot be careful."
Keep to the first.
Atlas deserves grown-up attention. That means rejecting easy metaphors when they do harm. Interstellar Highway is charming and mostly accurate. It reminds us we are not at the end of anything.
Omen is Lazi.
Harbinger is better if you hear in it not doom but announcement. More are coming. We built machines to see them. We hired people who can keep their heads while the rest of us lose ours. We do not need a prophecy.
We need a protocol.
Protocols are not only for data.
They are for culture.
They tell us how to teach children to love what we do not yet understand. They tell journalists how to write a sentence that breathes without lying. They tell skeptics how to be helpful instead of famous. They tell the rest of us how to stay with a mystery long enough for it to become a fact and then a friend. Our record is mixed. We turned Comet Halley into a panic in 1910 with talk of cyanogen gas and poisoned air. We turned Oumuamua into a shouting match when it could have been a seminar. We can do better with Atlas. We can keep the nicknames and throw away the nonsense. The personal turns up in science whether you invite it or not. You will find yourself thinking strange thoughts while you stand at a bus stop. If shards from other systems cross our path all the time, then our sky is not ours in the way we quietly prefer. If bottles with messages travel past our porch regularly, then our job is not to collect them like trophies but to read what we can and let them go with thanks. If you have ever held a meteorite in a museum and felt a dumb emotion move through you, you know how this works. Object becomes story becomes kinship. We are not the only house on the street. We are in a neighborhood full of porches.
Atlas diepens von more tension zet deserves delicht.
Oumuamua, with its coma-less nudge, still sits on the desk. It refuses to leave.
Atlas dos not escorted out.
It gives it company. Here are your exceptions, the sky says, putting them down like teacups, one normal, one peculiar, one both.
Be worthy of them.
Worthy does not mean certain.
It means patient.
It means loving the part of science that admits defeat gracefully when defeat is growth. It means letting models crack where reality asks them to and finding satisfaction in the sound.
You want details.
You deserve them. Atlas's coma will carry water vapor, and the ratio of heavy to normal water will whisper about the temperature during formation. Carbon monoxide, if abundant, will call out a nursery colder than our Kuiper belt. Carbon dioxide will tell its tale softly, because it is shy in some wavelengths. Methane will either show up to the party late or not at all. Complex organics, if present, will paint the faint bars we train graduate students to see after long nights. Dust will betray its size distribution by the way sunlight scatters across phase angles. Polarimetry, the measurement of how light's orientation changes on the way to us, will sketch the shapes without a microscope. These are not footnotes. They are chapters. There will be whiteboard fights about whether jets modulate at rotational periods we can extract from tiny wobbles in the light curve. There will be arguments about whether pre-perihelion flares correspond to specific topography on the nucleus, and someone will draw a map of an object nobody will ever touch and feel stupid and then feel right. There will be the famous plotting of the dust production rate as a function of distance from the sun, and someone will say out loud, "This is too steep," and everyone will be secretly happy because steep means new.
The timeline matters. The truth does not care. The window we have is the window we have.
Geometry will steal some days. Weather will steal others. Software will crash at 1 in the morning for reasons that turn out to be a semicolon and a human who needs a vacation. And still the work will get done. Atlas is not waiting for our schedule. It is teaching us to keep our schedule ready for its cousins. There is a temptation to add one more layer of meaning on top of all this: destiny.
Resist.
The universe is not a playwright.
It is a process. Wie Ase ohnes vis plots.
Atlas is not a character. It is a presence moving through a field of forces, obeying rules our ancestors learned to write down only recently. The glory is that those rules, when applied by minds that care, let us turn a moving pixel into a biography. We can stand in a room with an image overlaid with spectra and numbers, and feel accurately that we are reading a diary kept in silence for longer than our species has existed. You will hear, because people cannot help themselves, that Atlas has proven we are not unique. The correct version is less dramatic and more meaningful. Atlas has reminded us that we are connected. Unique is a loneliness we have been selling ourselves for a discount for centuries. Connected is a responsibility that looks heavier at first and then becomes a joy. If fragments from star systems we will never see can pass through our sky, then we owe them attention, the way you owe attention to anyone who shows up at your door carrying the weather from other towns.
You do not interrogate. You do not ask for passports.
You offer a chair and you listen. We will learn from the dust that peels away from Atlas that the galaxy's recipes rhyme. Or we will learn that they do not, and that variation is not noise but music. We will learn from its speed that violence writes long. We will learn from its path that the ecliptic is not a moat but a street. We will learn, perhaps more than anything, from our own behavior. Did we answer complexity with appetite? Did we handle wonder without turning it into superstition? Did we make room at the pier? Someone will propose an intercept mission and be told patiently that you cannot build a cathedral before the service. They will keep proposing, because people like that are who you want in your species. Small, fast sails held in a ready state. Piggyback probes that can drop from other missions when the sky speaks. A global choreography of modest telescopes that can swarm a phase angle like starlings. Funding models that treat surprise as a first-class citizen rather than a nuisance. Emergency time on arrays released by committees that understand why the word window is a detail no one should ever ignore. The part that stays with you arrives late, as it often does.
Not a Revelation. A rephrasing.
Atlas is not only about what's out there. It is about how we agree to be with each other when out there becomes in here. Every time we let a discovery become an argument about egos, we pay a tax that is not denominated in dollars. Every time we let a discovery become a shared endeavor, we print currency that spends well in every future. Make the practical concrete. After perihelion, after the geometry improves, after Hubble and JWST and ground scopes have collected their bars and bumps, the papers will appear. Titles will be careful. Abundances will be quoted with error bars that look like the shrug of a careful person. Conclusions will be mild and sturdy. The public will glance and turn the page unless someone tells them what they are looking at: a chemical X-ray of a place we will never stand, a poem the galaxy wrote in dust and let thaw in our sunlight, a line added to a ledger that measures how quickly a young civilization learns to move from spectacle to understanding. A moment of gratitude is in order and easy to miss. The machines that made this possible are cold and deaf and exact. The humans who made them are warm and fallible and prone to music and grief. Between them runs a line that may be the best definition of us we have ever earned: a willingness to place mirrors in the dark and love what returns even when it scares us. Oumuamua was a mirror that showed us our hunger for mystery. Borisov was a mirror that showed us our relief at normalcy. Atlas is a mirror that shows us our readiness to work. There is a small, perfect image to end on, and it is not an image of a comet. It is of a room at 3 a.m. Lights too bright, coffee gone cold, a screen filled with the ugly beauty of a spectrum.
A person leans in.
They trace a line with a finger no instrument can see. They say softly, there, because a ratio has told them a truth about ice that formed when the galaxy was humming a song the sun has not heard in full. In that tiny exhale lives the entire reason to do any of this.
Bevor you sleep tonight, open a window if you can.
Let the air that has been through everything brush your arm. Look up and forgive the sky for being silent. Remember that silence is the sound of all the messages arriving at once. Somewhere out there, a small active comet that was not born here is shedding the parts of itself that talk most easily. We are here to catch those words.
We are here to translate.
We are here to be changed by what we learn, and then to pass that change down the line. The traffic report will keep reading.
Velocity. Inclination.
Apparent magnitude.
Hyperbolic excess. The list will be long, the voice will be calm.
Tucked inside the monotony is the miracle. We are no longer an island cataloging lighthouses. We are a harbor on a busy coast, learning the names of the ships and the languages of their wakes. Atlas is already rounding the point.
It will be gone soon.
The water it troubled will keep moving, and so will we.
The lesson stays.
The next guest will be different.
The work will be the same. Show up. Measure. Wonder. Adjust.
And when the pixel moves again across a field that looks like peace, be ready to feel that first shock of recognition and say, without drama and with all the love a species can fit into a sentence, yes. We see you.
Wir listening.